listening to the 123 show with me, Noreen Mayer, this afternoon. I'm very excited to welcome our first guest of today. Now, she's a Feng Shui master based in the US, and she's visiting Hong Kong this summer. Patricia Lee joins us live in the studio this afternoon, and we're also on Facebook Live as well. So, if you'd like to watch and also see Patricia, you can log on to the Facebook page as well, Noreen Mayer on RTHK Radio 3. Welcome to the program, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, a few elements to today's topic. We're talking about creating better feng shui at home and how to bring good health, love, and wealth as well. But before we get to all of that, let's talk about you, Patricia. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become a feng shui master?
Well, I was born in California, and my parents obviously come from the Chinese community, and there was a lot of feng shui stories when I was a child, although I didn't understand what it meant. And then I grew up, and there was a period of time in my life when things were not going right. And I said, there must be something to this other, because it was peculiar. And so I started looking into the feng shui, and my father had been took care of this temple, the Taoist temple, one of the oldest still functioning temples in the United States. So I had seen these things, but I didn't understand them. And I started to look into feng shui. And then as I went down that journey, I said, I need to study this. So I started studying, and I went into formal studies in 2002. And now I am, many years later, I now primarily work with Mastery Academy and study with Joey Yap, and this is my primary training.
Did you practice feng shui at home? Did your parents practice feng shui at home?
Well, in those days, it was more wives' tales, and I didn't realize that there's an entire science behind this, which would require me to actually learn the principles and the technical part of it. So that's what I learned in class. Yeah. In the classes and the academy that I pursued.
Typically, I mean, looking around your classmates, who are these people who pursue feng shui? Is it people from all walks of life?
Yes, it's a complete variety, from one range all the way to the other. People who learn to do it for themselves. It is also people who are like me, want to practice it full time. It's usually people who are seeking answers, and people really who want to. They're positive people who know how to chase the dream. And so they want to chase the dream, and they want to minimize the learning curve, or the curve, and from point A to point B. And so many people in society find tools that they use. In our case, it's using feng shui.
You mentioned just now, there's a whole lot of science behind feng shui, the calculation and the various tools you use as well. It often surprises me, some of the people that I know who I've come across who believe in feng shui as well, because, generally speaking, some people might associate feng shui as, it's superstition, it's old wives' tale. But, it surprises me that there are people who, and the people who believe in it are maybe scientists, or maybe just people who are just more logical in their field of mind. Do you come across clients like that? Or?
Yes, very skeptical. In fact, I was a skeptic also. And I think it's good to have healthy skepticism for anything that you study, because otherwise you blindly follow. And this is not something you blindly follow. It's like anything that has science. You have to really understand the principles, one, and then secondarily how to apply. And so that's what the training with the Master Academy that I am with does.
So let's talk a little bit more about our topic today, about creating better feng shui at home, because we all have a home, we all stay at home for a lot of the time, and we want to perhaps bring some good wealth and health and a better love life as well. So do you have some tips for us, or should we ask maybe, let's start in the bedroom. Is there a certain position that we should put the bed?
May I just backtrack and give a little introductory overview? Okay, so feng shui started as the study of burial. And then as time went on, people brought it into the house. So it's a yin to the yang. And the Chinese imperial court used to use feng shui. In fact, in those days, only the people who were left in the imperial court could use it. If you used it otherwise, you would not be in this life long. And particularly, it was only for men. So the whole trajectory has completely changed, and many, many consultants are now female, and all walks of life, not just those of us who work in the imperial court, obviously, right? So there are a couple main principles about feng shui, so the overview. There are three main points and then a specific consideration. The first is we look at the yin and yang. So the entire yin and yang is the foundation of feng shui. This is the polarity of opposites. So it is, they have to coexist to be a mutual benefit to one another. So this is like one cannot exist with the other, out the other. So it's man, woman. It's parents, children. It's the sun, the moon, night and the day, light and dark, cool and hot. All things in life have to have both sides. Yeah, the opposite to be in balance and in harmony. So that is one of the most important factors that is the foundation of feng shui. The second is what we call the Cosmic Trinity, and this is what many people know as the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. The mind, the body, and the spirit. And you will hear many disciplines talking about that in modern times. For feng shui, it is heaven, earth, and man. And that means heaven is the time you were born. That is the governing body of energy that affects you. The time you were born affects how your life will roll out. The earth part is the...
That's why some mothers choose a time for them to have a cesarean birth.
Yes, that's why...
but you can't control when you're born, really.
Yes, you can't control where you're born, and some people have a different opinion of that. Some people are driven to have this child with a pure, successful, etc., etc. But even then, your child, it's a 5-day period. Right? So then there's others of us who believe that it is your destiny and you're going to come when you're supposed to come.
What's a 5-day period?
Well, usually a child, there's a timing when you can do C-section,
sure.
right?
Okay.
And there's a short time frame, and it has to do with the doctor availability, costs, and everything. Okay, so the other piece of it is the earth part. The earth part is where you live, the terrain, the environment. So a lot of people have heard in real estate, it's location, location, location. Obviously, you can drive through neighborhoods and you can see certain locations have more value than others. So the environment is heavily significant. It is one of the primary things in feng shui, and it really has to do where the mountains and the water are located in relationship to your house, particularly the front door. The final piece of the Trinity is man. So fate gives you where you live, where you were born, and where you start to live. What you do with that and the information that happens for you and when you're born is your destiny. So this is where man has choice. Like if I look into your chart and I say, oh, Noreen, you're going to have a job change, or you're going to have enormous wealth coming to you. It is then up to you whether you want to pursue that or not. Right? So it's like, hey, the weather's going to change. It's the sunny weather. You can do these activities. Or there's an earthquake coming, and you happen to be in earthquake company area that you live, and here's some of the things that you can do. And then it's up to you what you want to do.
It's sort of up to you.
Yeah, really, decision and choice is huge in this. And you could say, hey, I live in San Francisco. What is that? Earthquake company. It's my choice. Where I live in the city, I can pick better advantageous points than others. Now, the other thing is I can pay attention to learning how earthquakes happen and time my events. So it's like a weather forecast, and then you decide what you want to do with what it's telling you. Like if they tell you it's a tornado and you need to evacuate, most people evacuate, some will not. So it's your choice, right? The other thing is timing, and this has to do with date selection. Have you ever woke up and everything's going smoothly, almost like from the moment you wake up, you get the
you
right...
get the lift, and then you get to the train, and then there's no delays.
Work is totally smooth. And have you ever had days when you woke up and it seems like nothing's going right?
Yes.
Okay, so every day has chi. Every day has energy that is positive, negative, and neutral. How it affects you is the day you're born. So obviously, if it's a terrific day in the entire world, not everybody's going to have the same experience. The experience you have depends on when you were born versus the time I was born. I may have a slight edge over you one day, and another day it may be reversed. So timing is huge in what we do. Now, if we go into Feng Shui, the huge thing is internal and external. External is 70% of your Feng Shui. In the marketplace, you're not going to hear that. So all the books you buy, because it has to be do it yourself in the books, right? Otherwise, people don't want to go to class to learn all this. They hire people like me. So the books will primarily talk about internal Feng Shui, but external Feng Shui has 70% impact, and that is where the mountains are in relationship to your home around you. It is where your door is in relationship to the water, and all of that will affect the quality of the Feng Shui you have.
And you said that's 70%.
70%.
So really, how you decorate your house is really just minimal. I mean, it helps.
30%.
It's
only 30%. Now, if your external is good, even if some of your internal situation is compromised, overall, you're going to be quite fine. If the external is not good, then the internal matters more. You have to work that side of it. And so because we're talking about wealth, health, and relationships and some things people can do, we'll focus today's talk mostly on internal.
Okay, all right. But before we talked about the internal, I mean, what are some of the factors that we should consider when we're going to a Feng Shui master? What sorts of information do we have to provide? You mentioned just now the time you were born. I mean, what other my blood type? Just kidding.
The primary thing you need is the time of birth and the date of birth. If you have the hour of birth, it helps much more on the accuracy for me to make an assessment. The second is I would need to make a compass assessment of your property, the direction the house faces and where the door is in its direction. That allows me to put what we call a chi map onto your house. That chi map tells me these areas of your house are positive. If you use them, your success is much easier. Greater and simpler. And these areas are tough. If you use these areas, that's going to make it harder to succeed. You may still succeed, but you may have hurdles and obstacles. So the thing is, your choice. I don't want to move my master bedroom. I prefer to stay here, and it has challenging chi. Well, then you'll have obstacles with it. If you say, I want the easiest path possible, I'll go move into another room, even though it isn't the biggest room or the most...
it's not facing
with
best view.
Bedroom, a bathroom, and et cetera, and the best view. But it is the best place. So that, again, is up to you. So this is some of what we will do. So we need those things, and we need an accurate floor plan. If you provide me an accurate floor plan, I can do a much better job.
Yeah. You mentioned just now the compass. Now, we're not talking about the regular compasses that we see. Mm-hmm. It's much more sort of sophisticated. It's got a lot more detail to it. Can you describe or explain what that compass is for?
The Chinese compass, which is called the Lo Pan, has many concentric circles. Each circle is an assessment of the environment that you're looking for to get the advantage you want. We are taught how to read the Lo Pan, and what our goal is to line up the heaven-earth man for you. So I look at your birth chart, and I look at the chi map of your home, and my job is to assess where you are in these 10 years, and this year in particular, and then I look at the chi map for as long a period of time that you want to focus, but particularly the year, and you have goals. So my job is to look at the house positives to your chart positive, and I line them up. Then I give you that information, and the third part is what you do with the information.
Do you often get clients who are sort of more stubborn? You know, you tell them that perhaps there's a bit of a challenge in your master bedroom, taking your example,
Yes.
and they're like, no, there's no way we're going to move out of this bedroom. It's our favorite bedroom. How do you go about, I mean, do you persuade them, and do you sort of, or is it really up to them? I mean, how does it work then in that situation?
In the end, it's really up to them. But I'll give you an example. I had a client in London last 2 months, and she has a problem in her external feng shui. The south part of her house has water. It has a swimming pool, it has a water park, and it has a bunker. In the old days during the war, they would build bunkers down into the ground.
Isn't water good? Water means wealth.
Water is wealth. Totally wealth. Water has to be placed in the right place. And in this case, south is fire. Isn't the south the hottest part of the day? It is the hottest direction. So it likes warmth. It does not like water. There becomes the yin and yang, the fire, water clash. So when you have, and what the south does, because it's fire, it brings you happiness. It makes you visible. It makes you be able to achieve fame or notoriety or claim or whatever, to be seen for what it is you do, to get followers. It's all of that. It is also being related to the heart. Anything with the heart, the blood, anything with high cholesterol, heart attacks, and so on. And so what I do is I first have to diagnose the situation. Usually when people call us in, they already, there's the issue.
Yes.
Sometimes they call just to say, hey, make my life better. It's great, but I want to be better. Of course, you love those clients. But most people will call because there's an issue. So this client had some challenges. And I could look at the south because it was the sitting of the house. The sitting of the house is the singularly most important sector of the house in addition to the front door. So it had this water, so there's a conflict. So I asked her, is there problems with happiness? Is there potential sadness and mood issues? And the most severe would be depression. And there was. And one son had a lot of issues with happiness. And interesting enough, he was sleeping in a room that was all dark, little windows, curtains, and there was a slope over his bed. So it was very congested and dark. So he's living the this house. And then I said, is there arguing? Usually when you have water in the southern part of the house, it can increase arguing. And you can detail it down to who the arguing is most. Yes, because the south,
the most?
Yes, who it affects the most. There's things you can look at somebody's birth chart and you can tell who it's going to affect the most. So then you can ask, is this happening for this person? And almost always it is. And so that told me,
it could just be their personality.
It is the chart. It is the chart.
And it's because
a lot of times you pick a house that matches your chart. So then you can say, well, okay, that's my destiny. What can I do about that? Well, that's true. It is your destiny. And this is where you can change the feng shui. You can have somebody find a better house for you, or a house that doesn't have this problem. So they had this problem, and every recommendation I gave and the date I gave, she couldn't meet it, because opposite the south is the north. This year, the north has the most negative energy of the year, and that happens to be her front door. So here she's affected the long term for the sitting of the house with the water, and this year she's affected by the negative energy at the front door, which is the north, and her bedroom also happens to be in the north. So she couldn't make the dates I gave her. She couldn't get done what I was telling her. And her chart also has problems, or the family. Different people have the issues. So it made it, you get obstacles and problems that it's hard for you to get done. That is a circumstantial thing. And then there are people who, a chart and a feng shui thing. There are other people who just don't want to move out of their wonderful, most beautiful, biggest bedroom with a
ensuite
deck,
bathroom.
ensuite, and so on. And so I tell them, if you stay here, this is what it will be like, is in fact now. And I have never had it not be the case. The
Do they ever
story,
say, "Oh, but can I add this, or can I add a plant, and can I add a fish tank to improve these things?"
We all want the shortcut. It's like if you go to the doctor and he tells you you have diabetes and you need to quit eating sugar and bad food and fried food, and you say, "Oh, well, what if I only eat it sometimes?" and so on. So it's like it's up to you. If you want to keep suffering from diabetes, fine. If you want to cure yourself, you need to do these things. So I give them the choice.
Yeah, right. We'll continue with this chat with Patricia. Very, very interesting indeed. And keep your questions coming as well. We are taking questions, as I said earlier. Feel free to drop us an email, 123show@rthk.hk. You can also comment on the Facebook page as well, Noreen Mayer on RTHK Radio 3. We are going to continue the Facebook Live broadcast, but because we're going to the news, there might be a bit of a pause on the Facebook Live, but do stay with us as we will continue with more of this broadcast with Patricia after the 2 o'clock news. A quick look at the weather forecast for this afternoon and tonight. Mainly cloudy. There will be showers and a few squally thunderstorms as well. The thunderstorm warning is in effect at the moment, and the temperature is at 31 degrees Celsius and the relative humidity is at 74%.
RTHK News.
It's 2 o'clock. I'm Anna-Marie Evans. Despite the Chief Executive promising to include land supply in her October policy address, a government-appointed task force says it may not be able to provide her any feedback before then. Carrie Lam has been accused of trying to bypass a public consultation on where to find land for housing by discussing the topic before the report is finished. The chairman of the task force on land supply, Stanley Wong, says it may not be possible to have a clear summary, especially on those options which are controversial.
We are saying that only if some of the options had basically arrived at a certain clear direction before we perhaps communicate that message to the chief executive. While some other options, which perhaps will be a little bit controversial, I don't think we can conclude anything or we can indicate anything at the beginning of September.
A government decision to turn an urban renewal authority project into a pilot starter home scheme could reduce the authority's revenue by $1 billion. The authority's managing director, Wai-Chi Singh, says it can't afford too many subsidised housing projects in future because its job is to redevelop old buildings rather than ease the housing shortage, and it needs resources to buy back old flats. Public housing rent levels are set to go up by 10% from September, the first increase since 2016. More than 700,000 households will be affected. The Housing Department proposed the hike following an income study of existing tenants. The prosecution says it's considering charging a teenager with murder over the alleged killing of his girlfriend in Taiwan in February. The girl's decomposed body was found near a train station in Taipei. Timmy Sung reports.
So far, 19-year-old Chan Tongkai has only been charged with theft and handling stolen goods, as there's no extradition deal between Hong Kong and Taiwan. He faces 3 charges relating to having stolen goods belonging to the dead woman. In a brief hearing at Kwun Tong Magistracy, prosecutors added a 4th charge and other counts of theft. The case has been adjourned to the 22nd of next month for police to carry out further investigations and let prosecutors decide what to do next. The defendant didn't apply for bail, but his lawyer said he was ready to take pleas on existing charges. Mr. Chan is alleged to have stolen nearly $20,000 from his 20-year-old girlfriend and was in possession of her phone and camera after their trip to Taiwan.
The government has for the first time made clear its stance on national education, saying it won't make it a separate subject for at least 4 years. The Education Secretary, Kevin Yeung, also says having Chinese history as a subject on its own isn't a replacement for national education. He says students must have a certain degree of knowledge about their country, which is why more emphasis is being put on Chinese history. Widespread protests 6 years ago forced the government to withdraw plans for a new curriculum on the issue. The lawyer of a lesbian expatriate who won the right for a spousal visa says he hopes the government will amend other policies that deny rights to same-sex couples. Yesterday's judgment ended a 3-year legal battle for the woman after she was denied a dependent visa on the grounds that Hong Kong didn't recognise same-sex marriages. Her solicitor, Michael Vidler, says he expects litigation on other government policies.
One would like to think the Hong Kong government is going to be rational and sensible and efficient and look at its own policies and amend them to bring them in line with our highest court's judgment in relation to this particular immigration policy. I fear, however, that we're not going to see that, and therefore it is going to be a matter as we're now going to have a series of cases litigating this very same issue, but in relation to policies concerning housing or adoption or succession.
A survey of primary students has found 40% of them don't know what kind of paper and plastics can be recycled. Wofu Social Enterprises interviewed around 2,000 students. Spokesman Michael Ma says some children wrongly thought supermarket receipts could be recycled, while others didn't know plastic bottles should have their lids removed before being put separately into the bins. He says the government needs to enhance awareness of its recycling campaign.
Since the program does not include how to handle the general item, we identified the observation that the student just don't know what to do with the general item. So I guess in terms of whether we believe the program is up to satisfaction, I would say that there are much room for improvement.
A short time ago, the Hang Seng Index stood at 27,908. That's 333 points down from the previous close. The news from RTHK.
You're listening to the 123 show with me, Noreen Mayer, on this Thursday afternoon. We have Patricia Lee, Feng Shui Master, joining us in our studio this afternoon, and we're also on Facebook Live as well. Noreen Mayer on RTHK Radio 3. Feel free to drop us a comment and ask directly your question to Patricia as well. Patricia, just before the news break, we were talking a little bit more about, the time you're born, where you're born, determines sort of your fate in a way. But then ultimately, things can be done, and then the decision really belongs to the person, him or herself. And you gave an example where you had a client where a sort of south-facing house, but then it clashes with the north. So there's a lot of elements to do with it. This afternoon, we're focusing a little bit more about internal feng shui, so feng shui inside the home, perhaps inside the office, and how to improve on better health and better wealth and better love. Typically, what do your clients ask for most of all? Do they ask for an improvement for their love life, or for their health, or for their wealth? What do you get asked the most? All three. And
it's usually these three. Sometimes it'll another one is career, the other one will be children, and academics, learning, knowing, increasing their wisdom.
They ask on behalf of their children to see if their children will do well.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Each person has what we call a nobleman sector, a sector which brings you help from people around you, what we call noblemen. And you have an intelligence star sector, which makes you smarter and brighter. And you also have what we call a peach blossom sector, and that is for attracting love or just good relationships. And so it depends on what people want. I first have to diagnose where those sectors are to help what they want and what is causing the problem if they're having a problem. Then I'll make recommendations.
Okay. One of the questions I have in mind is a lot of times when you talk about feng shui, mirrors get talked about. Where should we put mirrors in the house or in the bedroom to bring better luck? I suppose in all three areas. I've heard that you shouldn't sleep facing a mirror. That's not good luck.
Well, that's a very interesting question. There's a lot of myths about mirrors. Mirrors are only important in the sense that if they actually reflect the person sleeping, or if it is in a spot where it brings in the light, because the bedroom is supposed to be a yin room, a quiet room, because you have to regenerate. Your body has to regenerate. And they've done studies. A majority of people in society don't get enough sleep. So your quality of sleep and how long you sleep, and I have that problem, affects your success level. So in a bedroom, it needs to be quiet. It needs to be dark when you're sleeping and not attract a lot of energy so that you can get the most you can out of it. So the mirrors in a bedroom, just make sure it's not reflecting the light that brings in so much energy that you can't get good quality sleep. Really, that's about it.
Okay, and not really facing it either when you're sleeping.
No, it's not that big of a deal.
Oh, really?
Okay, may I do this macro micro?
Sure.
Okay. The problem with the books we buy and the do-it-yourself, they do the micro because people need something to do and they've got to sell these books. And they have some minimal impact. This is the same with colors. Like, people are concerned about colors. They have like 1, maybe 2% impact. So I could spend your hard-earned dollars telling you that, or I can give you the macro. So you want to talk about relationships or wealth first?
Let's talk about wealth.
Okay, so let's talk about wealth. So if we're talking about wealth, the primary contributor to wealth is where is your front door? Location and direction. So the location of it in the 8 sectors of the compass matters. What is outside the front door matters. What is around the entire vicinity of the home matters, and where the mountains and water are in relationship to your door. That's the first one. Now, we have less control over that. So then we go to the internal. So this I will give you more information about, like some tips that people can do. So I had a couple here that I can share. First is location and the facing. So one is where it's physically located. You want, in the house, there are good sectors, bad sectors, and neutral sectors. So you want it in one of the good sectors, and that requires to take a compass reading of the home. The second most important thing is the direction it's facing. So I would take a compass reading of the facing direction, and that will determine the quality. Those two determine the primary quality of your wealth. And there are the micro, we'll go to the micro now. The micro include at the door, what you don't want is to see a T-junction. I'm the door. I don't want a road coming into my door because this is directly a hit on me. It matters how fast the chi is and how much traffic there is. If there's a lot, I'm being hit every day. If it's mild and there's not a lot of traffic and it's slightly going uphill to my house, it's less of a problem. So T-junction is a big one. You also don't want what we call a curved blade. I do not want a highway that cuts in it as a circle at me. It becomes like a blade if you look at it from the top. I don't want water either, because then it becomes a blade into the house, and these are what we call sha qi. I don't want to see a pylon. And one of the easiest things you can look at, you just open the door, what is directly in front of the 2 lines outside the door. I do not want to see a tree, a lamppost, or a pillar, because it divides the house. And what we see when you have this feature is usually there's a health problem as well as a wealth problem. and it will cause divisions in the house because the door is the mouth of the chi, and it is split.
You see, in Hong Kong, a lot of people live in apartments as well. So, usually when you open your front door, you're either facing another front door or you're facing a wall or the lift. So
I was going to cover that. You prefer the door when it opens to have what we call a bright hall, a Ming Tong, the widest unencumbered space that is flat, because the chi has to land somewhere. Our job as feng shui people is to pull the positive, find out where the positive chi is, and then pull it into the house. To do that, we need a bright hall or a large unencumbered space. If you live in an apartment, the main door is the more important one. So you want to open the door and you want to see a big bright hall. You turn around and you look inward, and you also want to see a bright hall. If you have that, that is a huge feature. If you have none of the negatives that I talked about, that's another huge feature. If you look out, one of the biggest things you could have, you look out and you're standing and you look out straight and to where your finger is pointing. If there's a small rise or mountain at that eye level, you have one of the best features you can have, because that locks into the chi into the area. It's called a table mountain because it prevents the chi from escaping. That is one of the huge contributors to your wealth. And the other thing we look at is the door. Obviously, some simple things. You don't want it to be cluttered. You don't want a bunch of trees closed in. It's dark. Usually when people have homes with covered front space and obstacles, it mirrors your life. You'll have obstacles, some sadness. At the extreme, it'll be depression. So trees are easy. You just cut them down. If there's a building out there, then you've got a problem. Then the internal becomes more
everywhere, the buildings in Hong Kong.
Yes. But Hong Kong has some of the best feng shui in the world.
I heard that.
Where I'm staying, at my friend's house, she lives in mid-levels. You've been there?
Yes.
Have you seen those mountains behind? They're huge. They're massive. And they're generally flat on top. These are called huge door mountains. There's 9 general types of mountains. The flat top huge door are the greatest for wealth, and for wealth fast and quick. And the larger they are, the massiveness of them enable that area to prosper. And I didn't know it at first where she lived. I just went there and I saw it. So this is amazing feng shui. And her life is pretty good. In fact, her life is excellent. Her husband has progressed up and up and up with his career because the wealth chi is there. The other mountain you will see in mid-levels is what we call a greedy wolf. It's shaped like this with a slightly round top. It's a singular mountain, and that exists in that area. That type of mountain brings prosperity, authority, recognition, and status. So it makes it easier for those people who live near to have these elements. Now, usually, because your birth chart is your heaven luck, people whose birth chart of a certain nature automatically are attracted or magnetized to the area. So their charts are already pretty good. Because in feng shui, the earth energy is 1/3 of your luck quotient. The birth chart is 1/3 of your luck quotient. The final third is what you do with it. So let's say you have the opportunity to move into mid-levels and you decide, no, I don't like mountains or whatever. That's your choice. And you may say, I don't care about status and power and authority. I don't care about, I want to live a moderate life. That's fine. Then you can go to a different choice. So that's the choice question. Now, for the other part of the some other wealth tips, you don't want to open the door and see, I'm the door. You don't want to open the door and you see another door in the back of the home, completely lined door to door, because the mouth of chi brings in the wealth. Comes in, it goes out. And it's even more problematic if at the back door there's a slope down. We generally, because of yin and yang, we want the backside to be supported, like you're sitting in a sofa, or a big sofa. You have a nice support in the back and you have arms on the side, like a hug. If your property is hugged, that's the external feng shui. You have a much better, easier life at achieving your success or whatever you want, especially in terms of wealth. The other thing we don't like to see is you open the door and you see a door to a bathroom, or door to a storage room, or a wall. When you have that, it doesn't mean you won't achieve success. It just means you have blockages and you face problems. Now, pretty much everyone in life has that. So it gets down to the quantity, how many you have, and the degree of how hard it is for you, right? And internal feng shui, if it's an apartment, you have more limitation. If it's your home, you can do a couple things. You can choose the bedroom you're in, unless you're one of those, I have to have the ensuite. You can change some of the interior by renovations, and then you can use other little, what we call cures or treatments to fix the problem. That you can also do. The final thing I would say is, did I cover the clutter one? You don't want the front of the door. You open it, and we all like in Chinese homes, Asian homes, you put shoes at the door for obvious reasons. Well, you don't want a bunch of smelly shoes all at the front door and the chi lands and it has this kind of feature. So that part needs to be clean. But anywhere in the home, if it is cluttered, your mind becomes like what is in your room. If you have junk everywhere and you can't find anything because you have piles of paper, your mind becomes that way. And we've all done this. You spend hours looking for something instead of being organized. So these are the main features that we look for wealth.
Well, we've got about 9 minutes before the 2:30 news. We have a few questions as well from some of our listeners as well. Perhaps let's go to Jason's question first. Our email address is 123show@rthk.hk. Jason has about 5 questions, so perhaps we'll take the first one.
Right.
I think Jason says, if we can see the stove directly from the main door entrance, is there a feng shui problem, and what problem will manifest in this household? Does having a partition to hold the direct line of sight helps?
Yes. This is an excellent question. The kitchen and the stove have everything to do with health. Health, wealth, and relationships, each question or area of life has areas we would look to diagnose. So if somebody has a health problem, in fact, we had a health question today. I would look at the kitchen and I would look at the stove in particular. The kitchen we like in the negative sectors of the house. Remember I told you positive and negative sectors? We like to see the stove in the negative parts of the home because it has a stove, so it can suppress the negative chi. Contrarily, we like the door of the stove or the knobs to face a good direction, and one that aligns with you personally. So location is number 1. Direction is number 2. We do not like to see you open the door and you see a stove, especially from the front door. This will affect the health of the people because this is where you eat. This is where you cook. And there's too much what we call sha qi. Like opening the front door, you have sha qi to your wealth. This is sha qi to your health. So the easy one is to move the stove. It's costly. The other is you can put a partition like he suggests.
All right.
So yes, and the stove, there's a couple principles in location. One of the most important locations you do not want a kitchen is in the northwest of the house, because this is the sector that affects the main breadwinner of the house. This could be the patriarch or the matriarch these days. It depends on who's carrying the weight. And it is related to the element of metal. And stove is fire. So fire burning the metal. And metal is related to your power, your authority, your health, your ability to organize, your leadership qualities. And these, if it's healthy, the Northwest is healthy, and it has good features outside, and there's no stove in there consuming it, then all the positives of what I'm talking about is much easier to achieve. In comes the stove, all the things I talked about start becoming a problem. It is also the case if the sector is missing. So if the Northwest is missing, and remember, it affects the leadership, the CEO, the main breadwinner, your long-term wealth, the patriarch of the home. If it's missing, then that means that person in the home and those aspects are much more challenging to accomplish in life. And this is where you will see women who are seeking love, because one of the questions is love. If the Northwest is missing, it is very difficult for that person, a male, to attract a woman into the house, because for a woman to attract a man into the house, because the sector is actually missing. And if you have a husband, it doesn't mean you can't get married or can't attract someone. You attract them, they're always traveling, because their affinity to the house is compromised because their sector is missing. That leadership quality, the ability to long-term wealth is missing. So that means I have to work harder. I have to make more money. I have to, maybe I don't care that my husband's not home. Then it's okay. But if I want a husband there, being with me, then there's going to be a problem. And there's also a sector for men with the female sector. And I have a client whose Southwest is missing. He's had a lot of relationships, and he does date, but he can't close the deal because the Southwest is missing. So I come in and I will first look at what is your problem, and I diagnose it, and there are a multitude of solutions. It's like, let's say you have carpal tunnel. Well, you can get surgery, or you can quit using a computer, or you can get acupuncture or massage. There are many alternatives. So my job is to see what the problem is, what in the environment is causing it, what in the chart may be causing it, and you can position and angle people and do various different treatments. Obviously, some are better than others, and then it's their choice, the one that they decide of all the recommendations we make.
Well, Patricia, we've got about 3 minutes before the 2:30 news. Should we answer one more question? We've got one from Jenny.
Okay.
Jenny says, "Hi, Patricia. I would like to use water activation for wealth in the Southeast 3. What are the good dates and timings to do so this month? I have Rooster in the year, Pillar, Dragon in the month, Ox in day, and Monkey in hour. And for the case of using fan or music, we would like to turn it on for the 2 weeks of activation, correct?"
Yeah.
You have 2 minutes to answer this.
This is a really good question, because in the solution base of what we do, we use remember the third piece is the heaven. And when you can align the treatments from changing the earth part, where they're using and sleeping, looking at their charts, and then I bring in the heaven luck, a good date, you can alter the direction of what is happening. And we use water especially for wealth, and certain sectors in the home take water, some do not. Jenny is referring to wealth. So the Southeast for the year is one of the best sectors to activate for wealth. Southeast 3, which is the snake sector. If you happen to have this in your chart, you automatically get it. You do not, you can put water there on a good date, and you leave it there. This is for a boost. This is a kickstart. You leave it there for 2 weeks, yes. And let's say another good date comes within less than 2 weeks. Throw the water out, put in new water. Minimally 2 weeks, or let's say you achieve your goal in 3 days, then you just take it down.
All right. There's another question on our Facebook page as well. JR says, what if I think he's referring to his home and his door opening, or what if the front door opens and there are stairs leading up straight ahead? What does that mean?
This means that the chi has difficulty reaching the second level. Unless there's at least 8 feet between the front door and the main stairwell.
8 feet.
8 feet. the stairs become the chi mouth of the second floor. And remember, we like a big Ming Tong. And to be able for the chi to move up, there has to be a gathering place before it can go upstairs. So definitely stairs are huge. You also do not, on a health question, the center of the home is what we call the heart of the home. It is related to your actual heart. And you work too hard, you mess up your heart. So the center of the home needs to be quiet, calm, and peaceful. When you have stairs, a laundry room, a stove especially, you are affecting the health, particularly related to the heart. And I have had this, and then I ask people, are there heart issues in the family history of it, or have you had heart issues? And almost every time I will hear about it. It could be minimal, like cholesterol problems, right, to the severe of triple bypass.
Wow. Well, definitely, this is such a cliffhanger to leave this conversation at. Patricia, what a pleasure to meet you and to speak to you this afternoon. Do you have a Facebook page as well? That I know you're based in the US, but some of our listeners might be intrigued to learn more about Feng Shui as well. Have you got a contact and a Facebook page where people can find you as well?
On Facebook, I am Patricia Lee at White Lotus Feng Shui. In fact, I have many Facebook pages for business, private, and public, but that's my public one, White Lotus Feng Shui, Patricia Lee. And you can contact me through there, and also we'll do it through your Facebook.
Exactly. Well, meanwhile, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Patricia, and I hope to have you back next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A quick look at the weather forecast.